Hello, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as we dissect and deep dive into all the latest Manchester United news. And of course, it wouldn't be Manchester United at the moment if we didn't have news around the sale. Is there now a sense of unfairness going on around the reporting from the mainstream media about Qatar? We'll be talking about that. Also, big story coming in from Sky about the intentions of what Qatar would look to do in the summer transfer window, which surely is something that, when you bring it down to the absolute basics of Manchester United fans' wants, surely we want no more debts. We want a new stadium or primarily Old Trafford renovating. We want infrastructure and we want our manager to be backed. And that is still a story that I think is well worth diving into. And there was a good update from Sky Cave on Sky last night about this. We'll talk about that. Multitude of other things to talk about as well. An amazing stat about Bruno Fernandes. I want to dive into that. Weghorst. Also the other bids and what the Glazers have asked the Rain Group to do. Explore all options, including full sale and investment. Lots of things to get into. Of course, on the morning show, good youth development. Exactly. I think that underpins what Qatar has said as well. Look, right. Let's fly straight into this. Okay, just looking at a chat that got deleted there. Call out the Prats in the media, says Abdul. Well, look, the first thing I want to talk about is Qatar's big summer transfer plan. I think this is a positive, and I want to start off on a positive, and I will talk about the media because I got called out for something this morning, which I'm more than happy about. Hope you're okay, says Tyrone. Feeling good today. I'm feeling Gary Neville-esque. Attack the day. Come on, everybody. Let's have a good day today. But lots to get into. Put a smile on your face and get moving. That's what we're going to try and do today. But positivity. Let's attack the day. So, yeah, look, I think that I want to get into the media stuff. I do feel, I don't know what you lot think, I do feel there's a bit of an unfair balance going on. There's some quotes I want to bring in from The Athletic this morning about Qatar and the scrutiny there. And it does feel to me at the moment that certain outlets in the UK are really scrutinising the Qatar bid and sort of ignoring some of the issues around the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid because that's the bid they want. And I get that. Everybody's got a right to an opinion. But you know what sort of frustrates me about it is I feel that I am sitting on the fence here about what I want. And I'm in a fortunate position because I don't know what I want. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and slag off either bid. And I think that's what you call equality reporting, which is what we should get, or responsible reporting. What we're actually getting is people are letting their personal opinion infiltrate outlets that are media outlets that surely should be equally reporting on this. The same thing, you know, we in the UK, especially in the sports media world, we do not get equal reporting. We don't. We probably never did. But because social media didn't exist, we were manipulated far easy. We can't be manipulated so much now because social media allows people to publicly ridicule bias. And what we're getting here at the moment, and we had it with Pochettino, is we're getting... I said last week, I don't think there is a similarity between Pochettino, the media wanting Pochettino and the fans wanting Ten Hag. But actually, the longer time goes on, one's a much more serious issue. We're talking about a manager, we're talking about ownership. Ownership's more important. But we did have this a year ago where everyone was saying, let's go get Poch, get Poch, get Poch. And the fan base was like, shut up, we don't want Poch, we want Ten Hag. And I think this is starting to happen now. It's not responsible reporting when you're inflicting your opinion to millions of people, but you write for a national newspaper or whatever it is, or you're on national TV. Like you're exposing your opinion, which you are entitled to have, but it's constantly coming out. And I don't think that's right because I think there is some very equal reporting to go on here. I'll get back to that, but it leads nicely into what I want to talk about. I just want the club to run correctly, says Jude. Focus on youth and not always buy superstars. Brilliant in my opinion. Bring on Barca. Love your work, says Jude. Well, I don't know whether anybody saw this on Sky last night, but Sky Cave, who's on Twitter and he's obviously Cave on Sky Sports, great journalist and reporter on there. And basically, he was talking about what the plans would be for the summer. And we sort of know what the plans are for the summer around Qatar, but he was saying if this Qatar bid was successful, their plans for the summer, and look, we spend so much time talking about who we want to own the football club. We need to get back to we won't choose, and we also need to get back to what would each bid look like for our football club, because it's hypothetical anyway. There's no point in arguing about who we want. It's far better to look at what each bid would bring. And what they were saying last night is that if Manchester United was acquired by this Qatar bid, then don't expect Galactico signings in the summer. That's not how they want to run Manchester United. Ten Hag will be backed handsomely. He will be given, far more investment than any Man United managers had in the Glazers. I mean, the Glazers are quite happy to give you 200 million one summer and then sod all the next. There will be sustained investment in the team, and Ten Hag will be given money to invest in the team. But already the noises from Qatar are that if they did acquire Manchester United, there may be opportunities to go and get the odd player that is the best player in the world. But really, they want to be spending money on the best young players in the world and building a team that will be, great for years to come. And, Real Madrid have sort of done that, haven't they, with the Tchouaménis and the Camavingas. And I like that idea. This is just coincidental, but we've had this chat before. If I was in charge of Manchester United, or you were in charge of Manchester United, and the summer transfer window comes, would I be looking for Frankie de Jong at 27, or would I be looking for somebody that's the next Frankie de Jong who's 20 and might be playing in the Bundesliga, or for a team in the Championship that's or lower Premier League or La Liga? And I think Ten Hag fits into that. He's got this amazing ability to take a player. I call it the Klopp way, because I think there's similarities with Ten Hag and Pep, and I think there's similarities between Ten Hag and Klopp. He's almost like the fusion of the two best managers in the Premier League, because I think Jurgen Klopp is immense at taking and we see, there's loads of people we can use as an example, but he's immense at taking a top class player and making them world class, or a good player and making them top class, and sometimes a good player and making them world class. And I think Ten Hag has shown that as well. So the last thing a manager like Ten Hag or Jurgen Klopp want is to be given Kylian Mbappe, Neymar, Kimmich. They might need one of them, but that actually would not benefit Ten Hag and Klopp. They're not the sort of managers that need to be given the finished article Galacticos. They're far better being given younger players that have got a little bit of growth in them. And I think that is a really encouraging noise to come out for this Qatar bid. And what Sky was saying last night is that, look, there will be spending at Manchester United if they get hold of it, and Ten Hag will be backed, but it won't be Galactico backing. That's not what they're looking to do. They're very aware of what Manchester United's all about the youth, about the structure, about the youth. I think about Manchester United, but I think that, and I think that's an encouraging thing. And I think whoever gets hold of the club, that's the way to go. Now, Aiden says, no, give us Mbappe. Look, there might be an opportunity to go and get one. I don't think it's saying we wouldn't get any of the world's best players, but PSG spent a lot of money getting a lot of Galacticos. Real Madrid 20 years ago spent a lot of money getting the best Galacticos, and neither of them won the Champions League. The blueprint is there, and United's blueprint is there. And I think there's a big hint as well in this foundation that you might have heard of last week that confused a few of us. This Qatar foundation, which is, I can't remember what it is now, but someone in the chat will know, 92? Something 92. And I thought, bloody hell, is that something to do with Salford? And it wasn't. It's something that they've set up in Qatar with the 92 in the name. Well, that's a big hint of the direction that they're going to look to go down, because I don't think that 92 foundation, says Abdul, I don't think that 92 or 92 foundation is a chance thing. I think that's a hint towards what they want to do with Manchester United. So, look, let's not kid ourselves. People can lie, people can manipulate, people can pretend, but I quite like the idea of that summer transfer window where we go and look at, Jude Bellingham would be the best of both worlds. He'd be a Galactico, but also be a young player, wouldn't he? But I quite like the idea of giving Ten Hag the money he needs, but also the license to go and get some of the best players in the world from... Look, let's be honest. Enzo Fernandez, Alvarez were two players that we were looking at. There are players out there that we've been looking at that have been proven to be really good. So, look, let's see what happens, but I can't pick any fault with that, and I think the thing that encouraged me about that when I saw it last night was that if I had one concern about any type of Qatari ownership of Manchester United on a footballing level, it would be I don't like the way PSG has been run, and nobody's going to change my mind on that. I don't like the way that PSG has been run, and I don't like Man United being run like that. Managers have been not backed in the sense of being given the players that they want, and then they find themselves surplus to requirements and sacked, and then they don't win the Champions League. John, welcome to the Members Club. Ronnie says, I hope you're feeling better today, mate. We have all been knocked down around the fear that Glazers could stay. Today's a much better day, says Ronnie. Thank you very much. Just quickly, just to give a balanced opinion on this, what do you think a summer with Sir Jim Ratcliffe would look like? Well, I'm loath to say that because there are other bids out there. And the Rain Group, there was a story coming out this morning that the Rain Group, who are running the Manchester United sale for the Glazers, have been told to explore all majority and minority outcomes. And what that means is that, I'm Ronnie Pickering, says Jim. I love that. Ronnie Pickering. I'm Ronnie Pickering. What that means is that the Rain Group will assess Qatar, Sir Jim, the Elliott Group, and anybody who is looking to invest in the club, whether it's a majority buy like the Qatar or whether it's a minority investment to keep the Glazers in play. Encouraging things coming out last night, following on from what we'd said on the show last night. Other Man United groups, obviously, we don't speak for them. They don't speak to us. It's a shame, but it's always nice when there's a unified message, because obviously we've got an audience, they've got an audience, and people don't want to bring those audiences together. That's absolutely fine. We've been always open to that, but it's nice when you hear things coming out that everyone's on the same page. We sent a few things last night from other Man United groups saying that this Elliott Group, or anybody who looks to invest in keeping the Glazers in the club, become an enemy of the fans. And it's good that those things get put out there, because, as I say, you'd have to be a mercenary group of people if you think that, you know, keeping the Glazers at Manchester United is going to go down well. It won't go down well. Hopefully we can get Ranić when the Glazers are gone, says Dylan. I'd love that to happen. I don't think it will, but I would love that to happen. But look, we don't know what the other offers are. So we've spoken about what Qatar and a summer transfer window could look like, and for me that's very important. What would a summer transfer window look like for Sir Jim Ratcliffe? I don't know, because we don't get enough scrutiny on it. There was a story yesterday, and I get people messaging me all the time saying, you clearly don't understand the financial world. No, I only worked in it for about 15 years. And I actually worked for a quite, well-known investment banking company for about 2 years before I left to do this. So I do have probably more of an insight into the financial world than some do. I don't work in it. There's many different levels to it, but what I do know is that if Ineos are taking on the debt to buy Manchester United, but the debt that's already there with the Glazers may remain, that's a concern. And people can say, well, that's normal in normal business. Well, I don't care if it's normal in normal business, to be honest with you, because one of the options is that the debt will be completely cleared and they won't be putting themselves into debt to buy the club because they're absolutely minted. So, sorry if I don't understand the financial world that people, when they buy things, normally put themselves into debt. I couldn't give a shit. We've just been in debt for 17 years. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit more appealed by a buyer that will not put us in debt, will not keep us in debt, and will spend a shitload of money on us. Sorry if that's more appealing than, well, in the normal world, people do put themselves into debt. What? You clearly don't understand it. I do understand it. I do understand it. It's called a preference. I would rather we were owned by somebody who's so bloody rich, they don't need to keep the debt. They get rid of the debt and they spend money on the club. And they've got loads of it. Loads of money. Yeah, I'm sorry. I want that. I want that over, well, it's normal practice to leverage your debt and buy a club like that. I don't care. We're not buying a bloody house together. They're buying our football club. I want super wealth. Now, people will start going, oh, that means Goldbridge wants Qatar. At what point did I say I want Qatar? I didn't say that. There's some super wealthy doesn't mean state funds or Middle East or China or anywhere else. Super wealthy could mean many things. It could mean Amazon. It could mean Apple. It could mean some billionaire that nobody's ever spoken about. But that's what I want. I don't want debt on the football club. Sorry, 17 years of that, didn't like it, don't want it, don't care whether it's normal business practice. So it doesn't mean that I want Qatar. I never even knew that Qatar were going to bid for Manchester United, by the way. When we were talking about this a year ago, 2 years ago, in the summer, we've had many a hypothetical conversation as a community, and I've said it a few times that actually, whether I like it or not, super wealth is the way forward. Imagine if we got Poch and we're watching Erik ten Hag at Chelsea, says Wayne. Yeah, well, we kept the receipts, didn't we? So the media who wanted that really should come out and apologise. Have you looked at this Elliott management bid in more detail? They're a private equity vulture fund. It would be the Glazers times 10, deeply concerning. Andrew, I don't think Elliott's investment would be very popular at all, thankfully, and I think everybody's eyes wide open to that. But look, just before I move on, we've spoken about what the summer transfer window could potentially look like if Qatar bought us, because that information's there. What would the summer transfer window look like under Sir Jim Ratcliffe? And the honest answer is, if I'm being completely fair, I don't know. But what I would say is, I think what we're looking at with the whole put the Manchester back into Manchester United, I think what we're looking at with a Sir Jim Ineos bid is a longer term plan. I think with a Qatar bid or anybody else who's super wealthy, they'll come in and tomorrow they'll be looking at the stadium, they'll be looking at signings, they'll be looking at this, that and the other. I get the sense with the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid or anybody else who's looking at that type of approach, the debt will still be there in some way, shape or form, and that will need to be serviced. Finding the money to build the stadium will be a longer process, and investment in players will be less because we will be more reliant on revenue streams, which will need time to be built up. So I think, to me, and look, again, I would shout out what I'm about to talk about here on the media bias around some of the reporting with this. We know a lot about the Qatar bid because it's been put out there by them on what their plans are. The Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid, we don't really know much about it. In fact, we're getting it in drips and drabs. What is the plan with the stadium? What is the plan with your summer transfer window? Where's the money going to come? Are you going to give Ten Hag 300 million in the summer, or are you going to give him 100 million because the revenue's not there to give him 300 million? So, I think there's a lack of detail on one bid and there's a lot of detail on another bid. And the funny thing is, the Glazers don't want any detail to be out there, and both of them have put stuff out there. But look, it doesn't change anything about where this might be. Now, what I want to do here is just bring in a little bit of info about another article. This is going to feed nicely into what I wanted to talk about, whether we're getting a little bit of unfair reporting coming in. So this is coming from Athletic. This journalist writes for The Athletic. So they're saying that, let me read this to you. The consensus is that Sheikh Jassim's bid is in the region of $4.5 billion for Manchester United. He can go higher if he need be. He's proposing to buy out the majority owners, the Glazers, as well as the publicly listed company's minority shareholders. He'll be clearing the debts and will then spend whatever it takes to return Manchester United to the top of European football, rebuilding the stadium, training ground, as well as investing in the wider area. He will not forget the women's team either. This is from the same article, Professor Simon Chadwick. There are approximately 3,000 members of the Qatari royal family, but only a small proportion of them are close to the Amir and his inner circle, which means most family members have little power or influence over government policy. This is where Sheikh Jassim comes in. He's sufficiently far enough from the centre of power, therefore serves a purpose in terms of distancing the Man United deal from PSG, who are owned by a state-backed fund, Qatar Sports Investment. Experience source in Qatar from the same article, Sheikh Jassim is a bit of a non-entity. They needed a private individual who won't be an issue for UEFA. Has he earned $5 billion in his career? Probably not. His father is the key figure in this. Who knows what his net worth really is? So look, I think that for me that story's a bit of a non-entity, if I'm being absolutely honest. And I think that I did want to bring this into the show this morning and sort of capture what people think. Do you think, and I know what some of the answers will be, do you think there is an unfair bias going on in the reporting of the sale of Manchester United in relation to the stories we're getting about Qatar and the stories we're getting about anybody else? And I think that there is. I think there quite clearly is. There's so much scrutiny on the Qatar bid from the British media, and yet the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid, I feel like I don't know anything about it. And I whatever I think about it, I don't think that's right, because it's just constant. Every day there's something about Qatar, and then the Sir Jim bid just seems to be, don't worry, we won't say anything about you. And I think that leads to a very, very basic level problem. We can talk about what the summer transfer window looks like with Qatar, but we can't talk about what the summer transfer window looks like with Sir Jim. And you know what? In life, where there's lack of detail, there's lack of trust. And we're getting a lot of detail on what Qatar would do if they bought Manchester United. We're struggling to know what Sir Jim would do. And yet I see people going, don't want Qatar, absolutely don't want Qatar, I want Sir Jim. And I'm like, you're jumping off a cliff. There might not be any water there. There might be a bouncy castle if you're lucky. It might just be brick and you're going to break your legs. Like, I don't know what what it is you want. Is it just the fact that he's British? Is it just the fact that he's from the area? Is it a prediction about what he's going to do? You don't know about the debts. You don't know about the plans for the summer. You don't know about the plans for the stadium. And yet, this is the bid that people are sort of leaving alone. And then the other bid, oh no, we're diving deep. Just going back to what the Athletic said there, I'll sit here and say to you right now, I do not for 1 minute think that this Qatar bid is individual. I think, no, absolutely not. This is the finances behind that will be Qatar, but they've just done something so that there is no connection to PSG. That's all they've done. For all intents and purposes, we're being bought by Qatar, 100%. That's my opinion. I don't think anyone can change it. And I think they're just creating a situation whereby we can't be linked to PSG on paper, but everyone knows we're being bought by Qatar, and everyone knows that we'll be the priority when we do get bought. So I ain't got a problem with that. If they're trying to uncover something to say, oh, yeah, still owned by Qatar, I think everybody knows we're going to get bought by Qatar. That's the whole bloody point. That's why it's called a Qatar bid. And some people get the knickers in a twist saying it's not a Qatar bid, it's an individual. Wake up and smell the coffee. It's not a bloody individual. It's financed by Qatar. It will be. That doesn't make it wrong. And ultimately, Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns Nice as well, and that's getting no scrutiny. So I don't even have a problem with that. It's much of a much for me. I just think it's going to be a very interesting time. And look, I saw something yesterday. Ineos, 2 billion invested in Saudi Arabia. Oh, what? Middle East is there's money from the Middle East involved in Ineos. Oh, what? No one told me that. No, it doesn't matter actually. But what's wrong with that? The Middle East is invested in all sorts of businesses. Yes, they are. But the minute it's coming into Manchester United, it's like this is the first pound from the Middle East to ever get invested in the Western world. Of course, it's not. I do think there's an unfairness, and I think, but on the other hand, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion. I've seen people who are going to look like right hypocrites. Like they've done videos, they've done articles. My opinion won't change for anybody. I don't want Manchester United owned by a state fund. I don't want Man United owned by sports washing, and I don't give a shit. And no one's going to change my mind on that. I don't want that happening. Well, I'll tell you what, those people are going to be very interested in the summer if we are owned by that, because I guarantee you'll forget. And that's why it's very dangerous to nail your flag to the mast right now. I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, because you're going to look like a right bunch of hypocrites when in a year or two we're winning the Premier League with that type of ownership. And then people will be able to go, remember what you said? Remember what you wrote? Do you want to play this clip back again? That's why, for me, it's almost desperation reporting, because people are expressing, I don't want it. But you'll all still be doing the same job in 2 years' time if it does happen. And you're going to look really silly then, because it's just desperation reporting. Oh, I desperately don't want this to happen. This is why I don't want it to happen. 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 But what if it does happen? My point is, you're powerless to stop it. You're reporting, you're gobbing off on videos and stuff. You're powerless to stop it. Whether I want it to happen or not, I'm powerless to stop it. So what happens if it does happen then? You're going to look worse than everybody, because you're going to take it, aren't you? Because you're not going to walk away from your jobs or anything like that. You're not going to walk away from supporting Manchester United. So it's desperation reporting. It's unequal reporting, and it's desperation reporting. And whilst I respect the opinions, you're not going to stand by those opinions. I mean, people quite rightly have said, some of these journalists who are moaning about it were out in Qatar having a great time 3 months ago. Some of these journalists are in, the businesses they work for are funded by the Middle East. So I don't know where I stand on that because it's still a personal opinion. But if there's one aspect to this I'm finding quite tiring, it's the constant bashing of this Qatar bid, because whether it's right or wrong, it's not down to these people, and that we know what your opinion is. It's almost like they're trying to investigate the bid to get it thrown out themselves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's emails flying into UEFA in the Premier League. It just comes across as very desperate. What kind of super wealth gets earned without having some kind of moral problems behind it? I just want the Glazers out, says Ronnie. And can I just say as well, somebody quite rightly replied to me on Twitter today when I'd said something about this, and they said, oh, yeah, well, you should admit you made a mistake about the Qatar World Cup because you moaned about it all the time and said you didn't like it. And I said to them, hold on a minute, stop putting words in my mouth. Have I said I want any particular bid? Oh, but it's very clear you want Qatar. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you can read my mind better than I can, because it's not clear to me that I want Qatar. It's not clear to me that I don't want Sir Jim Radcliffe. It's not clear to me at all what I want. So, I don't know what I want. But I'm not apologising for my opinions on the Qatar World Cup. For me, it wasn't a great World Cup. I didn't really like it, and I hated it being in November, and I don't like the allocation of that World Cup. So, you know what? Boo-hoo. I'm not being a hypocrite. The fact that Qatar could buy Manchester United is very different to not liking the Qatar World Cup, because actually a lot of my complaints about the Qatar World Cup were based on the fact that I don't agree with a World Cup being shoehorned in the middle of a season. I don't like a November Christmas World Cup, and I didn't like the allocation of the World Cup with, let's be honest, scrutiny around the bidding process for that World Cup was dodgy at best. So look, I don't make any apologies. I didn't like the Qatar World Cup. I thought the spectacle, I thought some of the football was watchable, but I know I'm in the minority. I didn't like the Qatar World Cup. I didn't like where it was. I didn't like when it was, and I didn't like what it's done to this season. Look, you know what? I think there was a lot of hypocrites who went out there who, had been very vocally against it for very, human rights issues, and then they're out there having a great time. But that's their conscience. That's not my conscience. I didn't go to the Qatar World Cup. But I don't see the correlation between not liking a World Cup being held at Christmas and Qatar buying Manchester United. I haven't said I wouldn't go to Qatar. I haven't said, I don't not go to Sainsbury's because Qatar Investments have got it into Sainsbury's. It's down the road from me. I often pop down there to get a lovely soup, which is like an Indian curry with cauliflower soup. It's delicious, and it's made at Sainsbury's. And I'm probably going to get myself one at lunch now. So, I'm not going to have it where I get thrown into silly little conversations to, be manipulated and used by people who want to push a different argument. If United get bought by Qatar, I'll still support Manchester United. I will. I'm not going to stop supporting Manchester United. It's too important. I might not like it if a bid comes in and gets us and it changes. Maybe I might not like football in 10, 20 years, the way it's going, but I'll still support Manchester United because it's more important to me than... Nobody can ever take away what Manchester United was to my granddad, what Manchester United was to me when I was growing up, what Manchester United, the memories I've had. They might become diluted, football might be destroyed, but the memories won't go. It's like having a dog, isn't it, that's dead. When you were younger, your pet. They're not here anymore, but the memories of that relationship are still there. I'm not going to stop supporting Manchester United because we get bought. If the Glazers stay, I'm not going to stop supporting Manchester United, and that's the worst outcome. That's the best example I can use. People say, "Wow, if we become a sports washing, state-funded club or whatever, will you stop supporting Man United?" No, I won't. I won't stop supporting Man United if the Glazers stay. I'll hate it, but I suppose I want to be blunt here. Where do I stand if Manchester United get bought by Qatar? Well, to be honest with you, I think it's going to happen. So I've spent time thinking about it. I think it's going to happen, and I just don't think the reasons people don't want it to happen actually wash for me. I don't, and I don't use the word wash in relation to a dig at sports washing or anything else. I just think the minute Chelsea, were bought by Abramovich, the minute Man City were bought by Abu Dhabi, the minute Newcastle were bought by Saudi Arabia, the whole principle and morals of things just went out the window. If you want to win, you need to be super wealthy. It's as simple as that. And I get that some fans will say, I don't want my club to be run like that. That's a personal choice. I personally just want to see Man United win again. And I think to win, you need super wealth. A11 says, typical English media being biased and hypocrites. Again, always something against Qatar. We're in a new era of football. It doesn't happen with United. It will happen to another club, says A11. You know what? You make a good point. I know it's not going to happen with Liverpool, but imagine for whatever reason, the Qatar bid is stopped. And we end up with, I don't know, Sir Jim or whatever. And then Qatar goes and buys Arsenal and makes them the biggest club in the Premier League and in Europe. Principles will go out the window then. They'll be full of regret. McAlvey says, I love having Goldbridge on in the background while doing some work. Tune out for a moment, and when I come back, we're talking about cauliflower soup, says McAlvey. Yeah, it's a fantastic soup. It's at Sainsbury's, and Sainsbury's is part owned by Qatar. So there we go. There is hypocrisy. There is hypocrisy, and there is info, and there is opinion. And I think what's happening now is, and this is what I'm talking about, unfair. People's opinions are infiltrating mainstream media, and people are almost being dictated to on why you shouldn't like a bid from Qatar. You shouldn't like a bid from Qatar because I don't like a bid from Qatar and I'm writing about it or I'm speaking about it. It's opinion. Opinion's fine, but we're being manipulated, I feel. I think we're being manipulated, and I think that there is one side which is getting absolute no scrutiny and another side that is getting absolute pelters. And let's not forget, some people will have very serious reasons why they don't want this type of ownership. A lot of people just don't want us to have this type of ownership because they don't want us to be super rich. You know, there's a lot of virtue signalers out there who just don't want us to be rich. They don't want us to be rich because they're terrified of what will happen to the competitions that we're in. So they don't want us to have the money, really, and they'll be going, wow, you've got to look at the human rights in that area of the world. You've got to look at the fact that we don't want state-funded clubs. Oh, they're not buying Man United, they're buying my club. Well, you know, I shop at Sainsbury's, you know, I liked the World Cup. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of the Middle East, and yeah, you know, it's going to be great for my club. And there is a lot of that going on as well. Akil says, do you think La Liga or Serie A make statements when Qatar buy United, given the circumstances now? Akil, I think that there is a lot of people that will be looking at it. It's like PDG says, they know we'd level up massively. There will be a lot of people trying to stop this. There was a lot of people trying to stop Newcastle and Saudi Arabia. There will be a lot of people trying to stop this. But ultimately, the first thing is the Glazers need to sell to them, and if they do sell to them, then there still be barriers that they need to jump through. But I'm going to move on for now. We've spoken about the summer transfer window. I think that was probably the most compelling bit for me, because that's the most important thing. We're spending so much time arguing about who should own United and being told why certain people shouldn't own Man United, and yet the most important detail on a football level is you're arguing for somebody to own United and you know next to nothing about what they want to do. And the ones that you don't want to own United have already told you what they're going to do. They're going to build a stadium very, very quickly. They're going to invest in the area very, very quickly. They're not going to take profit out of the club. And they're going to spend on the manager in a way that helps us get the best young players in the world to build a team for years and years and years and years. That's the Qatar bid. That's the one some people don't want and spend every day trying to find a way to make it not happen. But what they want, they haven't scrutinised. Look, all I want to know is, what is Sir Jim's plan? What is everybody else's plan? Because the Qatar plan is very simple on a footballing level, because it is simple. Infrastructure, stadia, investment in the teams. And they're going to do that. Are we going to get that with the other bids? Well, I don't know, because I'm spending all my time hating on this one. Qatar coming to a global stage will put any internal issues out in the public, will force them to react in a measured way. This can be helpful for the locals, says Pramod. And hi, Mark. I find it very ironic that the media is manipulated of the Qatar bid. Weren't they doing this as much for Newcastle and City? It's Man United safe. We're Manchester United. Because we're Manchester United, it gets more scrutiny. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on. There will be other bids, of course. I mean, one of the things I find quite funny is that there are other bids that we know next to nothing about that we can't scrutinise at all. In respect to Qatar and Sir Jim, at least they're publicly out there. There are people bidding for Man United or bidding to keep the Glazers in power that we've got absolutely no idea about because they're being kept quiet. And again, there's not a problem with doing that in business, but it's sneaky from the Glazers, isn't it? The Glazers do not want, and this is why Sir Jim and Qatar got in trouble with the Rain Group the other day, is because they do not want public statements out there. Because it's our club, but it's their club. And they're selling our club, and they don't want us to know anything about it. They don't want us to know what the options are. Because if we know what the options are, and they refuse those options to go with a bad option, then they'll get more shit, basically. So they're keeping us in the dark. That we're like mushrooms in the shed, kept in the dark and fed on shit. And that's what they're doing to us. They do not want us to know. I mean, imagine if Amazon had bid, but it's being kept quiet. They don't want us to know that. They don't want us to know what the good bids are or the bad bids are. They just want to be able to say, this is what we decided to do, and we never knew what the options were. That is their right, selling a football club that they own. But on the other hand, it's just another indicator of the mess we're in, where our football club, we are powerless. We know nothing about what's going on. Sagar says, would love PSG to become feeder club for United so we can see Mbappe versus Haaland. I think because our fan base is large and reactionary, media will say whatever just for news and noise, whether it's about players, new manager, and now new owners. It's just... Hi Mark, I'm not against the Qatari takeover. However, is it not similar situation to the Mason saga? So spiritual. No, I don't know whether that's a troll comment or whether you actually believe that, but no. I think the only similarity is that they're very sensitive issues, but no, I don't think there's any similarity there, to be honest with you. I think on the Mason Greenwood thing, the longer we move away from that, I've got to be honest, the less I want to see him in a Man United shirt, and that's just honest. We reacted to it at the time. The longer it goes from the breaking news about that, the more I feel I don't want to see him in a Man United shirt. And again, it won't be down to me, but I don't think I want to see him play for Manchester United again. And that's where I feel at the moment. I can only be honest. I know a lot of you do want to see him play for United again. I don't think I do. I really don't think I do. I think the longer it goes on, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't think I do want him to play for Manchester United again. But look, it won't be down to me anyway. Let's talk. I just want to talk about Bruno Fernandes for a minute. Did you see this stat last night? Bruno Fernandes has played, I think it's around 3,300 minutes for Manchester United this season, right? He's played 500 minutes more than the closest outfield player, and that's Marcus Rashford. I mean, I know I've been on about Bruno recently, saying about this recently, about what a machine Bruno Fernandes is, and me and Ben Foster were talking about it yesterday. But that's 500 minutes more for Bruno Fernandes than any other outfield player. What's that? 90 times 5 is 450. So he's played 5.5 games more this season than the second most outfield player this season, which is Rashford. I mean, that's unbelievable. 5.5 games more than anybody else. I mean, he's played more minutes than De Gea as well. You know, goalkeeper would normally be number one. I think De Gea's number 2. So it's Bruno, De Gea, Rashford. But the gap between Rashford and Bruno is 500 minutes. I mean, unbelievable amount of football played by Bruno Fernandes. And when you've got a player that is that good and that influential on the pitch that much, I mean, I can't give you the answer to this, but how many points do you think Bruno Fernandes has been worth this season? And the reality is, you can't tell me that, because you'll go, well, I don't think he's as important as Casemiro or the back five on Rashford with the goals, but he's the captain, and I've always been a firm believer that the captain makes a big difference. Bruno Fernandes has been the captain since after the Brentford game, and we've barely lost the game since then. The previous 2 years, Maguire was captain and we lost loads of games. I still think the captain has a massive part to play in how your team performs. And I think Bruno's been fundamental to that. So if he's on the pitch nearly every minute and we're winning nearly every game, I think those two things go in hand. If he'd missed 5 or 6 games, would we have won those 5 or 6 games without our captain on the pitch? I don't know. So I think it's a huge boost, and I don't think it should be kept quiet. I think it's absolutely amazing what he's been able to do. Bob says, if someone gets the death penalty in Qatar for saying they don't believe in Islam anymore, how is that our fault? Hypocrite, says Bob. And Bog says, look what's happened in the Amazon. You looking okay? Okay. Mate Marky, will United Stand Tour ever come to Brighton area, and send your thoughts on from Celtic as a bench option? I don't think we'll be coming to Brighton. Off the top of my head, I think there's quite a few places to go before we go to Brighton, but we're in London. If you want to get tickets, we've still got some available. And I know everyone wants him playing in the middle, but I actually prefer Bruno out wide. Less time on the ball, he can just create his decal. Look, I think Bruno off the right hand side has done really well, but for me, I like him in the centre, which leads me on to Weghorst. Some interesting comments about Weghorst over the last 24 hours. Some very, very pro, some very, very negative. I've always liked Weghorst. I get the sense that most people in the chat, or most people who's watching, we do like Weghorst. I don't feel like he's a player that's disliked. He's a very limited player, but he's a very hard-working player. And I think that, I'm surprised Robert McCormack hasn't jumped in yet with, or so Scott McTominay, but he gets a load of crap. But I don't think the problem with McTominay is that he was playing most weeks and he's been here for years. I think with Weghorst, we all know it's short term. Like he's never going to be playing for us next season as a starting player. Like we will buy players in the summer and we will solve the problems with the squad, and he might stay and be a bench player, but he won't start games. I think the thing about Weghorst is, and the reason people like him is, we all know he's not a starter really. We all know he shouldn't even be here. We all know he's here because they didn't give Ten Hag any money, and he went and found somebody who was really cheap. And his work ethic is like basically what I'm trying to say with Weghorst is, it's not like we can bench him. He has to start. And whether that's making us go down to 10 men, or whether he makes us a better side, it's almost academical. The reality is we have to use him because we don't have anybody else. And therefore, Weghorst is very much like looking in your cupboards and you really feel like steak and chips, and all you've got is a can of beans and some bread, and you make beans on toast and you go, it's not steak and chips, but I really like beans on toast and it's all I've got, so I'm going to really enjoy it. And I feel that is what Weghorst is, and I feel that's why everybody likes him. He is Ron Seal. He does exactly what he says on the tin, and he won't be here long term. We're not looking, I think with McTominay it was sort of like, Jesus, he might be our midfielder for the next 5 years. This can't be the case. I think with Weghorst, we know he's going to be our forward for the next 5 months. And, if Martial did get back fit, Weghorst would probably go on the bench. And I think that's why Weghorst is liked, because he's come into the club at a time where there was no money to spend, and actually he's become an option that, all right, he might be quite a limited player, but he gives everything, and you can see the players like him and the fans like him, and I think that's where we are. I mean, at the end of the day, he's a very limited footballer. He's so slow. His passing isn't particularly good. We don't really give him many chances, which I think is his strength. But his work rates off the ball really does help the team out. So, yeah, the mystery of Weghorst, I suppose. But I wouldn't be opposed to keeping him. I really wouldn't. I don't know whether we will. I think so much of it depends on who we. Funnily enough, we're back to what we were talking about at the start. It depends who gets hold of the club. If we do get an owner like Qatar, do you need to keep Weghorst? No, you probably send him back to Burnley and say thank you very much. Hopefully with a Premier League's winners medal. I'm joking, but you never know. If we get an owner that doesn't have that much money to spend, then we probably do keep Weghorst, because Ten Hag probably goes, look, he's a good option to have in the squad. But yeah. I don't think you can criticise the lad in relation to, I'm glad he's here. I think and I think he's an option that we really, really do need because there's nobody else. Of course, you could have something better, but the club wouldn't provide that. So for me, Weghorst is very welcome at the club, and yeah, there's frustration. There is frustrating limitations. I wouldn't say he's the best footballer in the world, but we do need him, and I think that's why people like him. Scandinavian, thank you very much for your joining the membership, and also says, thanks for sharing your issue with mental health. I struggle at the moment too. I fear British media will, as they do with everything, decide the outcome of this. But they didn't decide on Ten Hag, mate. They didn't. That was a fear a year ago. They didn't decide on Ten Hag. They wanted Pochettino, and we got Ten Hag. So look, let's just at the end of the day, people are going to want different things. Some people will get what they want, some people won't. Sorry, Mark, just joined the live. What's the latest news on the sale? Says AW7. There's nothing really on the sale. We're just talking about everything else. Mark, have you seen what Piers Morgan has said about Erik Ten Hag? Utterly ridiculous statement, says Raz. I mean, Piers Morgan and football don't go together. He's got crap football opinions. Whatever you think about him as a broadcaster, and look, he's had some good interviews. But when it comes to football, his opinion is rubbish. Like, think about the person with the worst football opinion in your life. It might be a goldfish. It might be a gran. It might be someone at school. It might be a teacher. Piers Morgan's at that level when it comes to football. He's just a wind-up merchant. He has got no football knowledge at all. It really, see, I'm not even doing it for a joke. His football knowledge is terrible. Really, really bad. Like, awful. I'd love to see him and Gabby Agbonlahor talk about football, actually, because I think it would be a comedy. But, no, Piers Morgan's football opinion is not worth spending any time on. It's dreadful. I mean, he wanted Arteta out because Arteta got rid of his mate Aubameyang. And now he wants Ten Hag out because he got rid of Ronaldo. And that's what it's all about. Complete nepotism. No football knowledge. Just, I'm sticking up for my mate who did an interview with me. That's all it is. I'm shocked to learn that Brendan gets paid more than Ten Hag. We should try harder to keep this man for the future, says David. Mark, have you seen the Bruno comments about his team members and his response on Twitter? He's a true captain, says Pauline. And Jack, welcome to the members club. Thank you very much. What else do I want to talk about? Deals. Deal or no deal? A lot of people have been talking about this. It's sort of got lost in what's going on with United at the moment. Garnacho's deal is really, really close, which is great news. Luke Shaw is close. David De Gea is close. Don't know what's going on with Fred. Delo is close. Marcus Rashford's an interesting one. I think it is close, and it's a deal. Liv, welcome to the Members Club. Marcus Rashford's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because he probably could win Player of the Year. I believe the way he's playing at the moment, if he keeps that up, he could win a Ballon d'Or at some point. That's how well he's playing. But he has got just over a year left on his contract, and the Rashford deal is really interesting. And look, I think football moves in cycles, doesn't it? There's almost a situation here, and look, would you trust Manchester United to steer their way through this? The form Marcus Rashford's in at the moment, he knows that there'll be a queue of clubs wanting him in a year's time when he's free. So he can say to Manchester United, look, in a year's time I'm free, somebody will give me 400 grand a week. So I want 350 grand a week now. Now Man United are meant to be reducing the wage bill. So Man United should be saying, look, you are doing really, really well. You're from you're from Manchester. You're from the youth setup. You for the last, before Ten Hag came here, you were terrible for 18 months. Since Ten Hag's come, you've been amazing. If Manchester United's the club that you want to be a part of, you'll sign the contract that we're going to offer you, which is 250 grand a week, and you'll want to be part of this with the club that you love and the fans that love you. I think that's the thing with Rashford. I don't know what's going on, but there might be a bit of an argument about what he's going to get paid. Scandinavians just gifted 5 memberships. I don't know. What would I give Rashford? I'd be working my arse off to make sure he stays, and I think Ten Hag would stay the same. But it does present an interesting issue for United, because we're meant to be trying to reduce the wage bill. I suppose the question is, do Manchester United think he's worth 350 grand a week off 6 months of amazing ability, when he's had 18 months before that where he wasn't that good? And do you just trust the fact that he's not going to drop off again, and that the marriage between Ten Hag and Rashford is going to stay stable for the next 5 years? In which case, he's worth whatever. But, you know, there might be some people going, well, the club shouldn't be held to ransom by anybody. There's got to be some kickback from Rashford to say, well, look, the club was paying me a lot of money when I wasn't playing very well and stood by me. I don't know. When it comes to wages, I think it's always very, very difficult. I think the most important thing is that he surely wants to stay at Man United because it's the best place for him, and United want to keep him. So I hope that there's an agreement there that's, you know, I don't think United should be giving anyone 350 grand a week anymore. I really don't. I think those days need to be over. But in football, I'd be a liar if I said there wasn't players out there with people around them who would be asking for silly money and sort of saying we're not signing it until we get it. That still does go on. I hope that won't happen with any United player, because Liverpool are a good example of this. You know, for years, Liverpool didn't pay brilliant wages, but they had a group of players that just wanted to play for Jurgen Klopp. And I think with Ten Hag, we've got a manager like that. So I hope that some of these players don't try and hold the club to ransom for big wages, and, you know, get good wages, but also see that this is the right place for them, because it is. From a career point of view, it is. And I think the renaissance of Rashford this season has been ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you still get people, oh God, Man United are winning games of football, and you've got people clipping you up and trying to go, oh look, I didn't want to sell Rashford, Goldbridge did. And I'm like, oh, you fucking did. You did. Everybody did. Like, everybody was saying he's finished, you know, move him on. And again, I'm not going to apologise for that, because at the end of the day, it shows you the journey him and Ten Hag have gone through to get to this point where we're saying he should win Player of the Year. You know, he could win the Ballon d'Or. That's not being a flip-flop. That's evidence. His brother, who is his agent, went to Paris last April, according to the Manchester Evening News and Samuel Lucas, to speak to PSG about Rashford going there. And yet you're a villain if you said, after 18 months of him being terrible and his brother going to PSG, you're a villain for saying maybe it's time for him to go because a year later he's doing well. I'm glad he didn't go, but it's this recency bias, isn't it? You know, I am not going to apologise for what I said a year ago. I felt we'd got to the point with Rashford when Rangnick was benching him and he wasn't doing well, where it just didn't look like he could play well again, and maybe he did need to move. And his head was clearly looking elsewhere if his brother was talking to PSG and he wasn't in a good place. Ten Hag's come in, refocused him. He's worked ridiculously hard, and now he's one of the best players in Europe, and therefore one of the best players in the world. It's very important that he stays at Manchester United, but it's also very important that we have squad balance on wages. You know, they're trying to get the higher wage down because that was a stupid wage to give. We don't really want superstars in the team. We want a team. Rashford now third favourite for Player of the Year. I think he'll win it, Robert. No chance you're 6 foot, says Ozzy. No chance I'm getting into an argument about it. I know how big I am. Right, anyway, we'll move on. What a show it's been. I feel like the shows at the moment we could talk for hours and hours and hours. I am doing a watch-along for tonight for Madrid versus Liverpool. Daniel, thanks for reminding me. So there won't be an 8 o'clock show tonight. It'll be 7 o'clock, which might well be the Barcelona preview. It might be the Barcelona preview, but we will be back at 2 as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks everyone for watching. Big shout out to Scandinavian88 who gifted 5 memberships. We're seeing lots more badges in the chat now. If you want to join the members club, click the join button. Thanks for all your support. Fantastic show this morning. Really good debate and conversation as always. And I will speak to you later. Have a fantastic day.